Ever imagine trading in those everyday routines for something a little more, well, British?
Yeah, like swapping out your usual commute for, say, a stroll past Buckingham Palace.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. The UK's Youth Mobility Scheme.
It's a chance to live and work in the UK for up to 2 years. Pretty sweet deal, right?
Definitely. But while it sounds straightforward, I bet there's more to it than meets the eye.
You bet there is.
Yeah.
Like, did you know the age limit isn't a one-size-fits-all thing?
Oh, really? So it's not just a simple under 30 and you're good to go situation?
Nope, not quite. Australians, Canadians, New Zealanders,
Okay.
they've got the longest window, from 18 to 35.
But what about everyone else? Say someone from Iceland or San Marino dreaming of their UK adventure.
For a lot of other eligible countries, it's a bit tighter, 18 to 30. But don't lose hope just yet.
There's always a catch, isn't there? What about those with, say, British nationalities, but they weren't born in the UK?
Now you're thinking like a pro. There are definitely some unique cases where British overseas citizens or those from British overseas territories might qualify.
Okay, that's good to know. So let's say you've got the age thing sorted. What's the next hurdle?
Well, let's be real. Visas don't pay the bills, do they?
Uh-huh.
You'll need to show you can support yourself financially.
Right, because even fish and chips every day adds up in London. How much are we talking about here?
Think around £2,530 in savings. Proof that you can handle the cost of living, at least for a while.
Okay, that's a decent chunk of change. But what about those with, say, a steady income stream or maybe family who are willing to chip in?
Now you're getting strategic. While a bank statement is the usual route, there might be other ways to demonstrate you're financially set.
So it's not just about the money itself, but showing you've thought things through and have a plan in place.
Exactly. It's about convincing them that you're not going to end up on a street corner begging for spare change. They want to see you're responsible and ready for the adventure.
Makes sense. Now, before we dive into the nitty-gritty of what you can actually do on this visa, I have to ask, is there a special program for Indian citizens? I'd heard some buzz about that.
Ah, good catch. You're thinking of the India Young Professional Scheme.
Okay, so that's a whole other kettle of fish then, a separate path for those eligible.
Exactly. Different rules, different perks, definitely worth exploring if you're in that category.
Right. So we've covered age, nationality, and the ever-present financial aspect. I'm already feeling more prepared.
And we're just getting started.
All right, so you've got your finances sorted, your passport's ready for that UK stamp, but what exactly does this youth mobility scheme let you DO once you're there?
Well, it's not just about hitting up the tourist traps, although I'm sure those are fun too.
Oh, come on. A little Big Ben never hurt anyone. But yeah, I'm more interested in the day-to-day possibilities.
Right, so think beyond the snapshots and the souvenirs. What would you say if I told you you could actually study in the UK on this visa?
Wait, really? I thought it was all about working those odd jobs to fund your travels, maybe a bit of sightseeing on the side.
You absolutely can work, but yeah, studying is a major perk a lot of people don't realize. Imagine taking a short course at a London art school, or even brushing up on your Shakespeare.
That's amazing. Are there any limits on the types of courses, though? Like, I can't imagine they're handing out free PhDs with every visa.
You're right, there are a few rules. Short courses, vocational programs, those are usually good to go. But if you're thinking about a full-on degree program, you might need an extra
It
certificate.
makes sense. They don't want everyone overstaying their welcome just to become a doctor, right?
Exactly. The UK government wants to make sure the system's fair for everyone, including their own citizens.
Okay, that's understandable. But what about those who are more entrepreneurially minded? Is starting a business an option on this visa?
Absolutely. In fact, it's one of the great things about this scheme. Imagine running your own online business from a trendy London cafe or freelancing for clients back home.
Now, that sounds amazing, but I'm guessing there's some fine print when it comes to actually setting up shop.
You know it. For starters, you'll need to rent your business premises, and any equipment can't be worth a fortune. Think less than £5,000.
So building a corporate empire is probably out of the question, but it sounds like a great way to dip your toes into the world of freelancing.
Precisely. And that's not all. One of the best parts about this visa is the flexibility it offers. You're not chained to one spot.
Okay, now you've got my attention. Are you saying I can actually leave the UK and come back in?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Fancy a weekend trip to Paris, a concert in Dublin, no problem. As long as your visa's valid, you can come and go as you please.
Talk about freedom. Now, let's address the elephant in the room, that age limit again. What happens if I'm getting close to 30 while I'm in the UK? Does my visa just expire at midnight on my birthday?
No need to panic. As long as you're within the visa's time frame, you're golden.
Phew, that's a relief. Now, I've heard whispers about a special bonus for those from Australia, Canada, and New Zealand.
Ah, you're talking about the extension, right? It's true. If you're a citizen of one of those countries, you can actually apply to stay in the UK for an extra year.
An extra year of exploring all the UK has to offer, that's incredible. Is there a catch?
Not really, just a few requirements. You got to be in the UK when you apply. You need to have a valid Youth Mobility Scheme visa, and you'll need to meet those same financial requirements again.
So no sneaking off to mainland Europe for a quick getaway while you wait for that extension to be approved.
Exactly. And remember, you can only extend once, so make that extra year count.
All right, so we've covered a ton of ground here. We've talked about who's eligible for this youth mobility scheme, what you can do while you're in the UK, and even busted a few myths along the way. But now let's get down to the nitty-gritty. What does it actually take to get this visa?
Well, it's a bit like planning a big trip, right? You wouldn't just show up at the airport without your passport and boarding pass.
Definitely not. So walk me through it. What are the essentials when it comes to this visa application?
First things first, don't wait until the last minute. You can actually start your application 6 months before you want to travel.
Okay, that's good to know. Gives you some breathing room, right? No need to rush things. But speaking of things that can be a little stressful, what about the cost?
Right, because visas aren't exactly free these days.
Sadly not. So what are we looking at here?
The application fee itself is 298 tikens.
Okay, and that doesn't include the healthcare surcharge, right?
You got it. Don't forget about that.
Yeah.
Gotta love the NHS, but it's not exactly free for visitors.
Right, that makes sense. So factor in the healthcare surcharge on top of the application fee. Speaking of important details, let's talk documents. What's on the checklist?
Well, you'll need all the usual suspects, valid passport, that bank statement proving you've got the savings, TB test results.
Okay, standard stuff. But are there any curveballs people should be aware of? Anything that might not be obvious right off the bat?
You'd be surprised. Different countries have their own quirks. Like if you're flying from San Marino, that tiny little country inside of Italy,
Yeah, I've heard of it.
well, they need a specific letter from their Department of Foreign Affairs. It's always those little things that can trip people up.
It just goes to show you really have to read the fine print. Make sure you're ticking all the boxes.
Absolutely. And speaking of ticking boxes, our listeners from Hong Kong and Taiwan, they'll want to be aware that there's a ballot system for their applications.
A ballot system, so it's like a lottery just to get into the running.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah,
It's an extra layer to the process, so definitely something to keep in mind.
got it. So factor that in if you're applying from Hong Kong or Taiwan. Okay, let's fast forward a bit. You've nailed the application, gathered all your documents, and boom, you're approved. What happens next?
Well, first, you celebrate. That's a big achievement.
Pop the champagne.
Exactly. Then, once the excitement dies down, you receive your visa, and you are good to go to enter the UK.
You're living the dream. Okay, but let's say, hypothetically, you meet someone special in the UK, decide to put down some roots, maybe even start a family. Does that automatically make your child a British citizen?
It's a common question, but unfortunately, it's not quite that straightforward.
So just having a baby on UK soil doesn't make them a citizen automatically.
Nope. You'll have to go through the proper channels and apply for a visa for your child.
Okay, good to know. Always better to be prepared. Now, before we wrap things up, let's circle back to those lucky ducks from Australia, Canada, and New Zealand. That visa extension sounds pretty sweet. Tell me more about how that works.
All right, so imagine this. You're 2 years in, you're loving life in the UK, not quite ready to say goodbye.
A classic dilemma.
Right. Well, if you're a citizen of one of those countries, you can apply to stay for an extra year.
An extra year to soak it all in? That's amazing. What's the catch?
No catch, really. Just a few things to keep in mind. You need to be physically present in the UK when you apply. You need to have that valid Youth Mobility Scheme visa, and you have to meet those same financial requirements again.
Okay, so no quick trips back home while you're waiting for the extension. And that financial hurdle pops up again.
It always does. And remember, you only get one shot at the extension, so make it count.
This has been so insightful. We've gone from what is this youth mobility scheme thing to practical tips on how to actually make it happen.
And don't forget, we've only just scratched the surface. There's a whole world of information out there, especially in the gov.uk website.
Absolutely. Consider this your crash course, but your own research is key. Talk to people who've done it, explore different options, and most importantly, be open to where this adventure takes you. You never know what hidden gems you might uncover along the way.